Welcome to episode 16 of the Imperial Tides podcast. I'm your host, Holden, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Simone. And today we're going to be taking a look at the 1985 film Mishima, A Life in Four Chapters. To start with, I'm going to take you through a basic summary of everything that happens in the film. And from there, we'll move on to our initial impressions, and from there to the more in-depth discussion. Now, before we begin, I should just mention a few fun facts because I thought this was interesting. Francis Ford Coppola and George Lucas actually were the executive producers on this movie, and of course, Ford Coppola is known for such cinematic works as Patton (1970), The Godfather (1972), The Godfather Part 2 (1974). And Apocalypse Now, 1979, among many others. And George Lucas, of course, is most famous for being the mind behind the Star Wars films, beginning with Star Wars 1977 and ending with Revenge of the Sith in 2005. But he's also responsible for the Indiana Jones tetralogy, which were in those films were released in 1981, 1984, 1989, and 2008, respectively. He's also known for THX 1138, which was released in 1971, and American Graffiti 1973, among many others as well. So to provide you, the audience, with a quick, well, it's kind of long, but it kind of has to be in order to capture basically what this movie is about. It's a bit of a complex narrative, but this movie, so Yukio Mishima, A Life in Four Chapters, it is a movie about death as a sort of creative apotheosis, right? So Yukio Mishima is a Japanese artist. He's a man of many talents: author, poet, playwright, actor, model, director, Shintoist, nationalist, Japanese nationalist, and founder of the Tatenokai, or Shield Society. The movie that is centered, this movie it's part biopic, part fiction, part reality, part literary adaptation as well. This film is complex, to say the least, with a narrative that echoes that said complexity. Several of Mishima's major literary works are blended into his life story. There are three distinctive aesthetics over the course of the narrative. There are color scenes, first of all, which follow Mishima in the moments leading up to his death in the present. And then there are black and white scenes, which follow him beginning in childhood and charting his artistic, public, and material successes. Thirdly, there are abstract scenes, also in color, but with set designs that signify that they take place in a reality that is not strictly our own. These abstract scenes are adaptations of some of Mishima's major literary works. The novels that are featured in this film are The Temple of the Golden Pavilion, Kyoko's House, and Runaway Horses. Yukio Mishima's real name was Kimitake Hiroaka, and he was born on the 14th of January, 1925, died on the 25th of December, 1970, at the age of 45. The cause of death was suicide by seppuku. Seppuku, or harikari, as it is sometimes referred to, for those who don't know, is a form of Japanese ritual suicide by disembowelment. It involves slicing the stomach open. It involves slicing the belly open from left to right so that the practitioner may die from rapid blood loss. Traditionally, this was done by samurai as a way to die with honor rather than fall into the hands of one's enemies, thereby restoring honor to themselves, their families, their country, and the Emperor of Japan, that is, of course. The movie is bookended by the events that play out on the day of Mishima's death. Everything leading up to his ritual suicide at Camp Ichigaya, which was a military base for the Japanese self-defense forces. He was trying to persuade them, the soldiers, to overthrow Japan's 1947 constitution. Mishima believed Japan had been corrupted by the influences of capitalism and Western civilization. He felt that the politicians in power at the time cared more about making money than concerning themselves with the interests of the people. Mishima believed Japan's purity was on the line in the modern era following the Second World War, and Japan's bitter defeat during such. While he didn't necessarily hate America, he did actually, and this is in the film itself, but he does have a moment of great creative importance during a trip to Hawaii. He felt that the Japanese government had submitted to them, the U.S. government that is, and Western civilization as a whole, too easily. Especially when their submission immediately followed, the dedication of the army under Hideki, I suppose, at the time. And it must be strange to see a country go from having soldiers that are willing to just blow themselves up in planes in order to protect the I guess the sanctity of their country, to of their nation and of the traditions of that nation, to all of a sudden, hey, our enemies are cool now. Let's do everything they do. Let's drink Coca-Cola and watch I don't know who's a good actor. I guess I don't even know. Just watch Hollywood movies and all that shit. To go from one to the other is just it's a complete 180, and I'm sure it bugged a lot of people. And I'm sure in that sense, Mishima kind of captured the thoughts and the sentiments of a generation, perhaps that post-war generation, from a certain perspective. But yes, Mishima did feel as if the Japanese government of the time, had compromised the dictates of tradition and honor that the samurai had once embodied, and he longed for national unity, pride, and independence for Japan. Purity, essentially, national purity. So I guess let's just to start off. So that's a basic plot summary. That's basically what the movie is about. It covers different time periods. Like I said, there are the color scenes that all take place during one day. It's Mishima's last day on Earth, and these aren't really spoilers because you kind of know this all coming in. I would say, but yeah, the color scenes in the present, they follow him basically on his last day as he's heading. It bookends the movie, and there are little updates on it here and there as in the middle throughout the course of the narrative. You see little snippets of his last drive through town as he's on the way to the base to make his political statement, and I guess have some sort of coup or some sort of half-hearted attempt at a coup, or however you would like to describe it. We'll get into that in a little bit. But you have that, so that's one storyline. Then the second storyline would probably be the black and white scenes, which follow him from childhood all the way up to adulthood, all the way up to the moment where he has formed the Shield Society and is basically submitted to his fate. So there are those scenes, and then also, of course, the third kind of scene would be adaptations of his movies, which they let you know what movie it is, and when it's published, they will have a little title card before those, and those are also in color, but again, they're much more abstract because they are focused on his fiction, and they're there for a reason, but we'll get into that in a little bit. So, well, I guess just to start, Simone, what would you rate this film out of 10, and why?
I rate it 8 out of 10. Because they did this film is supposedly to be more depressive, or because it's more on information regarding about Mishima's life, but did a great job to not make it too depressive. Given that there's a suicide aspect in this movie, there's a suicide part or the bloody seppuku, but it seems that the the movie was based on the director's own interpretation of Mishima's life and works. The movie can stand on its own, given that there is evidence and materials that the director uses to support his idea. Because the materials all are happening, or the aesthetic aspects are connected to each other. It is coherent. What is happening in the movie, or what is it all about, the underlying message about Mishima's life and his works, and all all his works that been featured in this movie are interconnected with uh, what is Mishima's thinking during his last.
And how did this movie make you feel?
I guess it's not more on the depressive abscess. I guess I focus more on the politic aspect or the nationalism that um, wants to wants Japanese people. I said, but I feel the urge to be patriotic towards my country. I've never been so patriotic. I don't have much say about things regarding the country where I'm living to fight for change, or maybe just have my. I've been relatively living my life. I don't engage in any political or any discussion about the social issues which need to be addressed, and not to be an activist, but at least be proud of, or find a way to make not myself to be proud or patriotic about my country, to start change myself, I guess. Never been, yeah, I never been so proud about. I'm just living in this place, and that's it. I never have much say regarding the political issues, or yeah, being a member of this or society. So maybe, yeah, I said I'm living here, so maybe I should have uh it's my obligation to feel the urge, or to be an urge to have care, or to care about this place that I'm living, to have my voice or about things.
What did you think of the film's technical aspects? That includes the soundtrack, the cinematography, the editing, set design, costume design, casting, all of that.
It's they did uh, uh each scenes each there are four parts in this movie, and they included different actors for each story. So yeah, uh, it was meant to portray Mishima in his works and in a dreamlike world, and not only the set but also the music brings you inside the world of Mishima, his works and life. It shows the relation of his notable works in his life, the biographical aspect, how these ideas emerge from here. We can say that it's one of a kind if you want to get into his mind and fill in his shoes. Uh, they did uh, they did a great job at making each of his work in a dreamlike aspect. It's just in one part where we can see the last day on Earth of Nishima, his life. He on his way onto the military base that he's going to have his speech, and he's going to execute to do seppuku, or a suicide. So it's just a brief it's just something like when you're going to die. It's just a 7 minute flashback. So that's what I realized about it, the technical aspect there really bring you about into his mind, what his life is all about, what happened in his childhood, what does he thinks during those times, and how does he come up with those ideas, his works, and what is the reason why he portrays such thing in his work, or what was his thinking all about, why what is it he's fighting for. Uh, that's really connecting. Although there are some criticism about the movie, because this movie was based on. It seems like for me, it was more on based on the director's point of view, or his interpretation of Mishima's life. But he did a great job. There's coherent aspects uh, that each the literary works of Mishima that he chose are really coherent or related to each other, to what is happening in the movie. Just like I said, it has the movie. It has not still been shown in Japan. In an interview with Kevin Jackson, Schrader commented on the fact that this film has still not been shown in Japan. Mishima is too much of a scandal. When Mishima died, people said, "Give us 15 years and we'll tell you what we think about him." But it's been more than 15 years now, and they still don't know what to say. Mishima has become a non-subject. Kevin Jackson. It's written on the Wikipedia article.
Okay. Cool, interesting. And do you think this movie is more important because it does kind of immortalize Mishima and kind of get the word out maybe about what he believed in and makes it so that his sacrifice wasn't completely, I guess, worthless or for nothing? Because I mean, if the people in Japan didn't even hear it or didn't even talk about it in the end, I mean, he's got to get something out of it, right? So do you think this movie might be good in the sense that it preserved his legacy and made sure that his sacrifice wasn't completely for naught?
Yeah, yeah. It seems that the Japanese people that really don't want to talk about him, or he became non-object at all. So um, this movie really did a great job to immortalize or appreciate Mishima's sacrifices. It seems that we can say that the people are not talking about him, so maybe it seems that his sacrifices goes in vain. But because of this movie, he's been featured, or his people can appreciate or realizes what he's fighting for. That it's really there's something behind behind his sacrifices. The It wasn't just a certain impulses, or he's just a psychopath or thinking something that he wasn't. Because he wanted to just to do things. This movie gives justice to what he's fighting for. But although there are some criticism about this movie, but at least to be it gave us a different perspective on who is Mishima is.
Okay. And why do you think the Japanese people don't want to talk about him today?
Um, Given that during those period, Japanese really accepted modernization or the culture from the West during those times. Maybe Japanese people are into some are really um, pat- patriot or something. They have some different. They are really different regarding some. They're not the type of people who will talk about these issues, or they choose to let some issues die, or really don't want to talk about it. Is something that it's more goes under their dignity, or uh, it's a different culture, I guess.
Right, right, yeah. Um, so in terms of how I would rate this movie out of 10, I would I'd give it a 10 out of 10. Actually, I would give it a perfect score, and that's mostly because I didn't think I would like it, but I ended up very much enjoying it. When I first heard about Mishima when I was about 16 or 17 years old, I thought he was too political for my tastes. But the great thing about this film and about Mishima himself and about art in general, art and literature, is that you don't always have to agree with it 100% of the time or even at all. You know what I mean? The beauty and the power of art lies in its ability to expose its viewers to different perspectives. And even though I think Mishima should have lived and directed his ambitions towards something perhaps a little more useful, I respect his commitment in taking what he believed to be the right path for himself. Personally, I think he could have used the wealth and influence he'd gained as a public figure to do something else in order to push the people of Japan in his direction, politically, spiritually, and ideologically. Like, for example, maybe continue with the campaigning that he was doing at the universities in that one scene, kind of a little more than halfway through the film's runtime. He could have done more campaigning like that. Maybe he could have run for office and competed against some of these greedy politicians, what he considered to be the greedy kind of capitalist, westernized politicians. He could have run for public office, and I'm sure he would have had a chance, considering that the fact that he is and he was a notable artist in many realms too. A director, a model, an actor, a writer, and a very prolific writer at that, a playwright. I'm sure he would have had a fighting chance, but he didn't do that. He killed himself, and well, we'll get into the merits of that towards the end of the episode because that is sort of the crux of the whole thing. So we'll save that. We'll save the best for last. But yeah, I'm almost under the impression, just based on how he decided to kill himself, just the exact circumstances of it, the coup and everything, it seemed a little half-hearted to me. I'll just say that now. So maybe he didn't really want to. Maybe he didn't want a campaign or anything. Maybe he just wanted to die. Honestly, I mean, it was part of it. I'm sure he had a reason, but the movie seems to suggest anyway that Mishima wanted to die, and very much so. That he might have, so much so, in fact, that he might have cared more about dying than pushing whatever political agenda he had. But then again, like you said before, one of the criticisms about this film is that it is a director's interpretation of somebody else's life and not necessarily the facts. So, of course, that's all up to interpretation, and maybe we can get into a debate about it towards the end. But yeah, in terms of the movie itself, the movie version of Mishima, it seems that yes, movie Mishima very much did just want to die, and I see the coup at the end. I see it as very half-hearted and very, ill. It's well thought out in the sense that they did everything that they set out to do, but the problem is that what they set out to do didn't seem to be very very wise, unless you see it as Mishima simply just kind of having just a pretext, having an excuse, having something, setting up an event around his ritual suicide. I think that the movie portrays it as that. It is him just killing himself and using that as a pretext for doing so. In terms of how the movie made me feel now, people a lot of the time they like to talk about powerful movies or powerful books or powerful works of art, right? And I, to be honest, I would consider this to be one of the first truly powerful movies and works of art that I've come upon in my lifetime. And I don't say that with any I don't say that loosely. I don't say that lightly, let's say. It affected me in a way that's difficult to put into words, but I will say this much. There's a certain dread this movie conjures up in me, as if it's made me realize that I haven't done nearly enough with my own life. And as strange as Mishima may seem in this, it doesn't make me feel as if I've done nearly enough with my own life, and that maybe I should find the thing that I'd be willing to give myself away to completely. Because, as strange as Mishima may seem in this film, at least he lived and died doing the things he felt were right? The things that he believed in. Even though he only lived to be 45, he was able to have a say in the matter of his own mortality, for example. He dictated his own existence from the moment he was freed from his grandmother's hold, it seems to me, at the very beginning. Because, for those of you who may not know, his grandmother, at the start, she takes him away from his mother because she's afraid that, because he's kind of a sickly child, so he's in bad health. She's afraid that, his grandmother was afraid that his mother would get him killed by keeping him outside. So she took him away from his mom and had him live with her, basically, and provided for him and everything, like gave him, exposed him to certain social circles and took him to the theater and stuff. But for the most part, she kind of sheltered him and kept him away from the outside world because she was afraid that he would get sick. So I feel like that's part of what pushed him to be so adamant and so, I guess, steadfast in his beliefs and in his commitment to some sort of greater aesthetic, intellectual, psychological, political, social, whatever cause. That definitely had to have played a hand in that. But yeah, you know what? Just overall, man, you know what? This movie, it is inspirational in a way that is honest. Kind of take life head on, unsentimental. But it's all at the same time. It's also disturbing. It's a lot of things, but these are the two things that kind of stuck out to me the most: inspirational and disturbing. And it's disturbing, especially with the way that, for example, in the adaptation of Kyoko's Cottage, that section of the film, the way that one turns out in the end, with the with the protagonist letting this woman, he basically sells his body and his life to this woman who promises to forget to forgive his mother's debt because his mom has like some sort of cafe or something, and she's way behind on her loans or whatever, and these loan sharks are gonna basically just keep abusing her until she pays, but she doesn't have the money to pay. So what ends up happening is that the protagonist of that one, it's not Mishima, but it's one of Mishima's characters. That protagonist sells his body, signs this contract with the woman who is basically, I guess, the debt collector. He basically gives away his body to her and everything, and he basically stays bound to her. He's like captive to her, and they have this really weird, fucked up, sadomasochistic relationship in which she cuts him with knives. She cuts his skin open because, well, a big deal. That story, it's all kind of about how attractive the main protagonist is and how obsessed he is with maintaining his aesthetic beauty. And that's one of the themes that it's one of the preoccupations that the real Mishima seems to have, at least according to the film, right? His preoccupation with beauty, with aesthetic beauty, and preserving, more specifically, the preservation of said beauty, the purity of youth and beauty. And I keep saying beauty, but and that's really the big thing in that one is that person's need to, well, for one, it's his fear, I guess, the anxiety of trying to preserve that beauty and trying to honor it, I suppose, and to try to be I guess some sort of aesthetic perfectionist. But then on the other side, there's the counter of that, which is cutting loose, forgetting about the perfectionism, and just going straight up, desecrating oneself for another sort of, well, much more twisted, much more fucked up aesthetic pleasure. And that's what they do. And in the end, I think she kills him because she cuts him up so much. She fucking kills him. But yeah, twisted stuff. But it's interesting how it's all part of the same person's life, and really kind of just the essence of that writer and that artist and that intellectual, Mishima, that he could be so committed to, well, just in everything too. I mean, he had a great public personality. He was charismatic. He had a great sense of humor. He had a lot of friends. He had a lot of supporters, a lot of followers. He can make people laugh pretty much all the time without really thinking about it. But at the same time, he could get serious about his politics. He could sit down and really commit himself to a cause. He would go the extra mile. Most people wouldn't do the things that he would do. Especially kill yourself for what you believe in like that. Especially in the modern day too, in the 40s. He was perhaps a spiritual successor to a samurai, or at least wanted to be, but he certainly wasn't a samurai. This wasn't the 1800s. This wasn't feudal Japan. There was really no reason for him to do it, and that's what makes it so significant and impactful, is the fact that there really, well, we can get into that in a bit, but there was no reason for him to go that far, but he did anyway. And yeah, all in all, the movie, how I would describe it, just in one word, if I had to describe this film in one word, I would say that it's visceral. It's visceral and affecting in a way that penetrates far beneath the skin. No pun intended. In terms of how I felt about the film's technical aspects, now to switch gears a little bit, I got to say this: I love the soundtrack by Philip Glass. I loved the various set design and coloring distinctions that they made between Mishima's past, present, and the adaptation of his books. And I also loved the casting. The actors they chose to portray Mishima, with, they look almost identical to him, especially the one playing him as a boy. If you look at a picture of Mishima as a kid and then you look at the kid in the movie, it might as well be spot on. It's great. And then also, of course, the famous, the droning, kind of constantly rising, almost sort of beautifully demonic. And I didn't say that. That was a quote from the comment section for the YouTube video of someone uploaded the soundtrack onto YouTube, and I actually, one of the comments said that it was that it sounded beautifully demonic, and that, or demonically beautiful, and that's how I would say that's perfect. That's a perfect description of this movie and of Mishima as the artist and of the soundtrack, and really nothing else would do the work and the man as much service as this piece that Philip Glass created for the film. It perfectly suits it, and I don't think anything could do it any more justice. Is there anything you'd like to add to that? Any of that, Simone, at all, before we move on?
Yeah, especially the cast that they choose. They really did a good job to, yeah, they're identical, and then and in the different parts or different adaptation of the books, it has a different aspects or a different aesthetic aspect or a different color different colors, which um, really suits the story that they want to portray. For example, the house of Kyoko, it's in pink, or it's in pink or a girly color. So yeah, it's good. It's a one of the aspects that I really like on the adaptation of his books. The different colors that it portrays, it balances the mood that of the of the movie, and especially the soundtrack that you said. It's also good. And for example, the in the part about the his this movie, it's really, I guess they managed to balance things that about his political political aspects, or what he's fighting for about his political. It wasn't that that part they portray the last day of on Earth of Mishima, but yeah, it also seems to me that it's more focused on. It seems that it's pointless for him to be. It wasn't focused literally on the on his fight for the political aspect. It seems that he really wanted to die. You see that in most part of the movie, it seems that he's he's really thinking of a way of which he's really looking forward for his death. For example, in his youth, he's think he's afraid to die, but it's also he wanted to die. That's in the the aspect that you should say that it's quite demonic or something.
Why do you think he wants to die so bad? You know, why does he seem to see death as this sort of creative apotheosis?
Uh, I think that because he's the type of person that gets into more introspection. He has a different philosophies in life. I guess that for example, his view about beauty that in one of his work in Kyoko's house, that he said that it's much way there's no any particular 18 to 20 years old or something is the best time to die, because your body is it's in its most beautiful form. So yeah, it's something that it's relate to that. It's in perspective about beauty and his philosophies about life, to how he how things how he come up with his idea with his experiences. For example, his experiences when he is a child, or growing up as an adolescent, or a full individual coming into this consciousness of today's reality, the reality that he's been living all the wars, and then the and in his personal issues, personal development about because of his culture, and then and him as an individual.
Yeah, but where exactly does this darkness come from, though? Because most artists, I mean, like most artists, and I guess people or whatever, and just in general, um, they appreciate beauty, right? They appreciate the nobility of giving yourself up to a cause, and of dying a, I guess, a good useful death, but not quite in this way, not exactly to this extreme. You know, the extremes that Mishima is willing to go, and they don't get twisted. It doesn't seem that they don't go to these really dark places the way that Mishima seems to, especially in Kyoko's cottage, and just, well, everything in general too. You know, in politics, with of course Runaway Horses, which is about a people, you know, kid, a high schooler, killing a politician to, you know, restore the dignity and purity, restore dignity and purity, the sanctity, um, the state of Japan, uh, as in the country. But why is he so intense? Like, where does that darkness come from? Because most people don't have that darkness. It seems to be something that's unique to him. Any ideas as regard to where the darkness comes from within Mishima? Because it almost seems to be some sort of form of evil. Like, I would say demonic is the perfect word for it. It seems to be this sort of invisible, incomprehensible force that it drives him all his life, even from childhood, even from youth. It seems to be something he was born with. It's this innate trait of his. But I don't know. Is it some form of mental illness? Is it trauma? Like, I don't know. What could that come from? Because it doesn't seem as if anything particularly bad happened to him, other than the fact that he was kind of sheltered as a kid for a couple of years. But then he goes right back to his normal life. And but I don't know. Like, what exactly is it that makes him the way he is? He's off, a little bit, and he's driven by this darkness that's really hard to make sense of. It's baffling, really. What do you think that is? Where do you think it comes from, and why? Why all this intensity and stuff, and why this? I guess evil. Yeah, like why this creative evil? Why and where does it come from exactly?
I guess we can say that he's inborn with it, or for example, the way he looks at the world when his grandmother didn't want him to play or get out of the house or get exposed to the sun or something. I think that it wasn't really bad at all when he got born with it. Maybe there's something that triggers him along the way with his. Even though he has we can say that he has a noble life, or um, he has a pretty normal life. There's no something. There's no particular traumas that took place in the story or during his life, but maybe the reason for it for me is he looks on things too deeply. I guess that he introspect or really um really think about things so deeply. For example, the wars or about his suicide or his life. But um, he look at things very differently. Not just not it's really different. That's why it drives him to come into this conclusion of it makes him somehow that you say that it becomes to somehow demonic or something. Because maybe the only reason that I can see is just he really look at these things very deeply. I guess everyone. I think it's not. Nor there are also some people uh, that been this way, or maybe think deep when he is a child, just act the way when he is a child, or think that way. But maybe Mishima just take it too seriously. From childhood to till his death, that is just he really thinks too deep against things here. He really finds something that he can relate to his depression or something that he dig into deeper into things to really make it somehow depressing or something.
Yeah, we'll get into that a little more in a bit, but I just wanted to ask you now so that you could have it ahead of time, just so you could think about it as we go a little more. But let me ask you this now, to continue with our discussion. You know what? What was your favorite chapter out of the four? Because this is, of course, it's called Mishima, A Life in Four Chapters. Which out of those four chapters was your favorite, personally? And the chapters, if you forgot, they are beauty, art, action, and harmony of pen and sword. So those are your options. Which of those was your favorite, would you say?
The first one, I guess the art. I like this one. The part where uh, yeah, the conversation with the temple of the golden pavilion. This one leaves the greatest impact on me, especially the line comparing love to
Oh wait, no.
uh,
Sorry. That those are the books we're talking about. I meant the chapters of the movie itself. So, beauty, art, action, or harmony of pen and sword. The books are part of that, but we'll get into that specifically in a second. I just wanted to know what general section of the movie is your favorite. There are four to choose from. Of course, the beginning has all the kind of the childhood stuff and everything, and then the end has him kill himself. And then of course the other two in between. Those cover the other books, but they also cover. I think three covers more his political aspects or whatever, the political aspect of his life and his career. And then art, which is the second chapter, covers his successes as a writer. So which out of those sections would you prefer? I'll go through the list again just in case. So chapter 1 is beauty. Chapter 2 is art. Chapter 3 is action. And chapter 4 is harmony of pen and sword. So those are your options. Which out of those four are your favorite and why? And then we'll talk about the adaptations. But I just wanted to know about the general section first. Go ahead.
I'll stick with beauty when he's a kid. I guess that or beauty or maybe art. Maybe it's just he's coming of age or he's getting into his mind, or I guess that he's developing as an individual, or we really have a background of his suffering, why he's been thinking that way, or who is Mishima is, because this part of that part of his life really dictates or tells us a snippet or what he will become, or something that the adolescent part of our life really affected us, or really build us as an individual. And I can see that his development during those period, he's getting into literature, and his, his devotion about things, or he's really developing as an individual. And we can see uh, the deeper introspection about things, or how he relating to getting into involved into the politics, and then stuff about himself. He's discovering and learning more things about himself.
So you think art chapter 2 is the one section where he's kind of we see his development the most. That's where he's really kind of coming into his own for the first time.
Yeah, for me that's where I can see his development, because in the third and fourth third and fourth part of the movie, it seems like for me that it's more similar in those two.
Right. Well, and what I like about that too, by the way, chapter 2, which does kind of explore it touches upon, not necessarily covers, but just touches upon his success as a, kind of his material success as a writer, financial success. It's interesting that the movie reflects how he felt about that, personally, because the movie is more concerned with the movie reflects kind of Mishima. It kind of embodies him, because everything Mishima cares about, the movie also cares about. It kind of mimics him beat for beat in that regard. And it's interesting that Mishima didn't really care about his material success in that way, and so because he didn't care, the movie doesn't really care, and so it kind of brushes over his how it's that little montage. It's like a 2-second montage. Really, it's not that long at all, where he just talks about how long it took for him to write each book. It's like, oh, this one took 2 months, this one took 5 months. Spring snow 10 months or whatever. And then it just cuts to him signing someone's book, and then that's it. And then they never even talk about the success ever again. He doesn't even care about that, and so the movie it brushes over it in 2 seconds. I just thought that was a nice little touch, that the movie really is kind of true to the, I guess, the essence, the spirit, or whatever the director interpreted the spirit or the essence of Mishima and his works to be. You do focus on his books, but you don't really focus on the publication history or anything like that. You focus on the actual story itself and what it's trying to say, and it really just does just jump into the art of it on its own. None of the other kind of not the materiality of it, but just the work itself. It just jumps right in. It doesn't spend too much time pussyfooting around with anything else, and that I just thought that was really interesting. And yeah, I don't know, our conversation just made me think of that all of a sudden. So yeah, they did a good job with that. Nice little subtle thing that they artistic decision that they threw in there. But so now let me ask you this. So you did say chapter, and you were about to talk about your favorite book, but what do you think your favorite book was out of the three that were covered in this film? And your options are again the Temple of the Golden Pavilion is one. The second would be Kyoko's House, and the third would be Runaway Horses. So which out of those three was your favorite, as portrayed in this film?
The Temple of the Golden Pavilion. The pavilion. This one leave the greatest impact in me, especially the line comparing love to a rotten tooth. Let me read this line. Beauty is like a rotten tooth. It rubs against your tongue, hurting, insisting its own importance. Finally, go to the dentist and have it pulled. Then you look at the small bloody tooth in your hand and say, "Is that all it was?" And I like this line because it's relate. Uh, this book is where I can relate into. We can relate this one into the human nature. The evil. Maybe it's just the start. This is one aspect that we can say that human beings are evil because of envy. Because the main character in this book, he envied the golden pavilion, so he set it on fire. And it has some historical background about a monk burning burning a famous a famous uh, a famous temple.
Interesting. So there is a historical basis for it, and it is again it's interesting to to see that you go from kind of this Mishima, well, through his work, kind of appearing to express this sort of resentment towards beauty, only towards to the very end, of course, to again kind of reconcile with beauty and find it in his death. Still, he kind of makes peace with it by the very end. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, when he was younger, of course, he was mad about it, and he tried to express that, and through I guess through that stuttering protagonist, the character in the book, he kind of captures is kind of what he would what I'm assuming he felt to be his impotence. Well, and then that's another thing too. Impotence. That's another theme in that when he's trying to touch the girl's breast and he just can't do it because he doesn't feel like he's deserving of it. He's too weak, and so because of his weakness, he learns to resent. He comes to resent beauty just overall because he cannot appreciate it. He can never hope to appreciate it or be part of it or get as close to it as he would want to. And so instead of trying to be this perfectionist about it, try to work towards it, all the time, he lashes out and he destroys it altogether. He just gets rid of it because he has this resentment towards it, this envy, like you've said, which he seems to kind of move past later in life. And maybe the reason why he moved past it was because he kind of exorcised that insecurity or that I guess that resentment, that kind of that bitterness through his work, and so he got it out of his system. He kind of made peace with it. He understood it a bit more, and then he matured and then moved on. Yeah, that is that is an interesting choice. What would you say your least favorite of the three books was, if you had to pick one that you didn't like, or at least liked least compared to the other two, out of the three that are covered in this film?
Uh, I don't know. I guess the other two are also good, but it's just this one really stands out. This one, the Golden Pavilion is really this one is the one that really stands out to me. I like the other two, but it tackles on a different aspect, which I can relate to that much, but it's also good in the aspect that I get into some insight regarding what it's all about. For example, beauty, and then the fight for something that you believe in, or uh, the fight for change or something.
So you had a most favorite, but you didn't have a least favorite.
Yeah, I don't want to 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 choose a least favorite in this one because They really it tackles a different it focus on a different topic. So maybe I guess it wasn't a justice. I think I can give justice if I will choose a least favorite one because those two are really good. Also good.
Did this movie make you want to read any of Mishima's works in the future?
Yeah. I want to read the Golden Pavilion first because it's not because I like it because yeah, it's just maybe it's a good start for me to get into his works.
Interesting. Okay, cool. And then, well, so what was your favorite version now of Mishima? Because of course we have so many different versions of him. We have his characters who are not exactly him, but of course they're extensions of himself and of what he's worried about and what his preoccupations are as an artist and as a thinker and as an individual. But then, of course, you also have the child Mishima. You have the adolescent Mishima. You have, I guess, the writer on the rise Mishima. You have also the homosexual Mishima, who's, there's only like there's like one scene where we see that he actually does engage in relationships with men as well as women. So he's, for all intents and purposes, it seems that he's bisexual. That's a part of his character as well. But then also, of course, the military Mishima, and then of course the ending, the sacrificial Mishima. Which out of all those different iterations of him is your favorite, and why?
I guess the for me, I like the adolescent Mishima. It's his first time to get into the military. I guess he's planning to commit suicide, but it seems that he has appeared to commit suicide, but um, saying that he's ready to die, but in reality he fears death, just like most kids of his age, becoming conscious to the reality of the world. Fear is stronger than anything in his space. It could be the only driving force that can affect us to move forward or step back. And his part, it enables him to develop not only as a writer but as an individual. And it's one another one of the most important part of his life because we can see his development in this one. It enables him to think more deeper as a writer or to become more conscious as an individual or what's happening, or it's not exactly about what's happening around here but also what is he as an individual, what is he fighting for, or what's the reason why he wants to commit suicide, or what's the reason behind his works, or
Oh my god.
uh, he is as an individual.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So you like out of all the different versions of Mishima, you like the ones that kind of capture him in development. I guess you like to see him kind of change and go through the motions of, I guess, growing up and developing as an artist. You like the ones where he's kind of in flux, in the most flux rather.
Yeah, exactly. I want I like the way that he's looking for his own character. He's searching for the meaning of his life or what what he could be in the future. Or it's just a background. This is the foundation of all the other version of Mishima except his childhood. It's also uh, this part is also connected to his childhood and how he developed as an individual, but I guess this one is the most important one because it's the foundation of who is Mishima will be in the future, or
Right.
why is it also the reason why he will that will lead him to be a political person, or will lead him to. This is all we can see. Also, the reason why he committed suicide in the end, because in this part he is also thinking of committing suicide.
Right. Right. Yeah. Exactly. So it does have a precedent somewhere in his, I guess, his life history, I suppose. Real quick though, before we continue, would you mind muting? I think your Facebook Messenger notifications are going off. I can hear it. Do you mind just muting that? Sorry about that. Just
Chris, sorry.
no, it's fine. Just making sure that I mean, let me just make sure everything's good on my end too. I just because I thought it was coming from me, but okay. So where were we? Oh yeah, let me answer the last three questions now. Okay, so what was my favorite chapter out of the four? I would probably say that the last one, which was chapter 4, Harmony Pen, the harmony of pen and sword. I liked it because it was where everything finally came together, you know. And the seppuku scene, for me, it was nothing short of beautiful. And I was kind of worried that they weren't going to do it justice. I thought that they were going to build it up to be this big thing because really all of his life is leading up to this moment where it's tantamount. You know, he has to kind of be, it has to be perfect. It has to be this consummation of, let's say, art and action, and it has to be this kind of the culmination of everything that he's ever done up to that point. You know, it's his existence. In one moment, it's kind of the height of his existence and everything that he's ever wanted. And so I was hoping that it would do that justice, and it did, and it was phenomenal. I loved how they edited it. It just, you know, it smash cuts to his character in Runaway Horses dying. I love that. And then the final shot of the setting sun in all its, you know, orange and red, blazing yellow glory. It's great. And I don't know. It's one of my favorite movie scenes of all time. It has to be now, without a doubt, without a shadow of a doubt for me. It was just phenomenal how they did that. And so for that alone, I would have to give chapter 4 precedence over the other three. Not that, and again, it is kind of weird to parse a movie like this when it really the whole thing, again, it is called Mishima, a life in 4 chapters. You know, so to try to isolate one of those chapters, it's a bit strange. You know, it is kind of. It's not necessarily the kind of thing that you need to rank like that. You don't really need to think of it in terms of that. You know, you don't have to put it into that kind of that critical process that you might with other, let's say, like popular media, like movies and stuff they're more for entertainment than, I guess, this kind of thing, art. And I don't know what intellectualization, whatever the term would be for this, I guess, more thought-provoking stuff, but thought-provoking serious cinema. But yeah, I would say chapter 4 by far, for me personally anyway. In terms of what my favorite book was that they adapted in this, I would say it was Runaway Horses. It was definitely Runaway Horses for me. It seemed the most appealing to my personal tastes. You know, I liked even though I'm not particularly I'm not a political guy or anything, I liked to see the depiction of the political extremism and the assassination of the man in power. They made it a very intense viewing experience for me. There was this overpowering sense of dread that I felt while I was watching it. You know, I don't usually get that, even when I'm watching like a thriller or a suspense movie, like Taken with Liam Neeson, for example. I wouldn't feel the way I felt about this adaptation of Runaway Horses. That, you know, I wouldn't feel that for something like Taken, you know, because it felt so much more real to me. Even though it was exaggerated, of course, even though it was an adaptation of a novel, which is, you know, fictional and again exaggerated for I guess aesthetic reasons and storytelling reasons and whatnot, but it was beautiful. You know, I loved the kind of the moving poetry of it. I don't really know how else to describe it. I really liked it, you know, and it was serious. Like, it was serious shit. Like, the stakes were high. And I wanted to know what happened, and then when it happened, I was like, holy crap, you know, like, I don't know, my stomach kind of, my stomach kind of sunk, and I got chills. Like, I don't get chills when I watch things, but I actually I got goosebumps watching it. It was very affecting. It was very well done, you know, and I don't know, there are people, man, I don't know, we all kind of want to, anyone who wants to be a writer or an artist or anything, like, we all want to, we can only ever hope to aspire to do something as kind of what's the word for it? I guess visceral as that, you know, something as emotionally affecting as that, because it was very impactful. And maybe it's just me, maybe it's just a purely subjective thing, but I really enjoyed it. And it wasn't necessarily the subject matter, it was what the subject matter represented, you know. That, again, the political extremism, it's not really about politics, it's more about what underlies that, the need for politics and the need for, I guess, that sort of extremism, that degree of commitment to a cause. It is again, it is this need for it's this innate human need for something to believe in, and we'll get into that a little more just a little later. I know that I keep teasing things, I keep bringing them up and then pushing them off for later, but trust me, I mean it'll be good when we get into it in a moment. But yeah, I really like that one. I really did, and I don't know, it's great. It really is. But as opposed to you, Simone, I actually did have a least favorite of the three. For me, Kyoko's house was it was a little too abstract. Hold on, because I'm trying to think. Maybe did I like which one did I like least? More less than the other. God damn, this fucking truck keeps fucking. I love how we try to record and the goddamn garbage truck is like coming. Yeah, first it's the recycling truck, now it's the garbage truck. I'm sorry for that, but that's fucking really annoying. Like shit, I don't know. God, yeah, it's like I tried to schedule this to be whatever. Fuck it, I don't know. That's really fucking annoying though. Why does it have to come now? It's fucking 4 in the afternoon. God damn it! What the fuck are you guys doing? Where are you going? What the fuck? Like, I don't know. How many fucking neighborhoods do you have to go to before you get to us? It's like, fucking hell. Why does the garbage truck come at 4 in the afternoon? Like, the sun's already going down. God, fuck you guys. Seriously, God, you guys are fucking incompetence, man. I don't know. But anyway, so I think I would have to rank, in terms of how much I enjoyed the 3 book adaptations. From least to greatest, I would go Runaway Horses, Kyoko's House, and actually the Temple of the Golden Pavilion. So sorry, Simone, but I actually don't agree with you on that one. I actually thought out of the 3, the Temple of the Golden Pavilion was not necessarily the worst, but the least effective, for me anyway. Kyoko's House, it was a little too abstract, and so was the Temple of the Golden Pavilion. But of the 3, I would say that I liked the Golden Pavilion the least. And that's just because the protagonists in that one, the character in that one is stuttering, and his exaggerated facial expressions. To me, they kind of came off as a bit cringy and like unintentionally funny. He's just like, oh, I can't touch the titty, I can't touch the boobie, I can't touch it because I'm going to burn the house down because I'm scared or whatever. I can't I can't appreciate beauty in its full form. It's just cringy as fuck to me. I don't know. But you know what? What I liked about the inclusion of all 3 works, though, was just how they established, for me, they established a distinction between what Mishima wanted and what Mishima actually had. The distinction between ideals and reality, let's say. For me, they embody his artistic and in individual preoccupations very well. And those preoccupations being in order. And so this is, so Runaway Horses, Kyoko's House, and the Temple of the Golden Pavilion, in order of what each of those embody, the preoccupations would have to be 1, his desire to preserve beauty, 2, his desire to die for beauty, and 3, his desire to connect beauty to action and to die for that as well. And then in terms of what my favorite version of Mishima was, I would say it was the 45-year-old general of Shield Society. So him in his kind of his full form. The iteration he was during his last day on Earth, when he's waking up in the morning, kind of just asking, are the kids at school and everything, and then he's just moving from that mundane, just everyday stuff to driving down to the military base to, killing himself. That was, to me, the film kind of implies that he was only himself when he was on. It was only on his way to die that he was truly complete. Let's say his longing in the because his longing in the other stages of his life were interesting, but it wasn't as satisfying. It wasn't nearly as satisfying when he finally consummated everything that he'd been building up for at 45. At least for me, that was when he became himself. That was when he finally occupied his element and filled that hole. When he became whole, when he filled that kind of that emptiness in his I guess his existence, just his inner being or whatever. He really did become whole when he took his life, paradoxically, and that's what I really liked, that version of him. Everything else, mind you, though, of course, everything else, you wouldn't have that iteration of him if it weren't for all the other different iterations, of course, but that you could say that about anybody, of course, right? That's universal, right? You can't really be who you are at 20 without being the person you are at 10, and then the person you are at 15, and so on and so forth until you're dead. And then maybe even a little beyond that in terms of legacy and whatnot, but anyway. Um, is there anything you'd like to add to any of that, Simone, before we move on?
Uh, I don't like the way the main character act in the Golden Pavilion, but I like the story. I like the story that he want to portray. I'm interested to know more about the what is the story is all about. It's just what you say. Um, it has a little or something. It has the list to offer just to rate it the list of your favorite. That's why I wanted to know more about that one. Yeah, the maybe if I read that book, I can get more idea what is this all about because the way the character act is really weird, but the story is I like the story.
So you like the story, but so you're interested in that concept of preserving beauty. That appeals to you as a kind of I guess a literary um, concept or notion.
Yeah, I'm interested in the fact that that's the reasons why why things makes human beings evil. So that's one aspect that I like about that.
Well, and so let's talk through the other books too while we're at it. What did you think of Kyoko's House, for example?
Yeah, yeah, it's weird for me. It's just yeah, it's all about they portray beauty in a different way. That it's choosing death over life because of beauty, but I guess that we can say that they're philosophical in that aspect that they're choosing death over life just to preserve beauty. That beauty, it's just I just realized that beauty is not only a reason for a living, but it could also be a reason to die or something.
Beauty as a reason to die, and how could it be a reason to die? Do you think?
Especially in the way that they portray in the in the Kyoko's house, that it's just they want to preserve beauty. They want to preserve beauty. Just to say that in our early adolescence, that's the best form of the body. So that's why there's I don't know. It's just in the part. It's just the best part to burst age to die or to preserve the body because that's the only time that you can be beautiful.
Right, because he said, by the time you get to 40, you can't help but die a death of decay because by then you're too old. The beauty of youth is already gone and you're starting to rot. That's how he kind of saw life and adulthood, and he wasn't looking forward to old age. I mean, 40 is not, 40 is still, it's pretty young, but he considered that to be old because he was thinking more in terms of like the classical, like Roman and Greco-Roman societies and, ancient times, basically, the old world. He was going way back. He was saying, the average lifespan in the Bronze Age, for example, was 18. That's how he was thinking, and I guess in that sense, he's a classicist, a bit of a classicist. He kind of goes back to those fundamental, kind of almost I would say Renaissance kind of ideals and that sort of thing. And again, like well, he said some of his favorite writers, for example, were Thomas Mann, who wrote The Magic Mountain, which kind of touches upon a lot of the kind of the same territory that his own work treads and whatnot and explores and delves into. They're very similar in their ways, and well, and then he also said Lord Byron too. He looked to Lord Byron as sort of an inspiration because Byron was also a soldier as well as a writer, and that's what he wanted to be as well, Mishima, and you see that, and there's this term, this famous literary term, the Byronic hero, and a Byronic hero, which it was put into place by Lord Byron. It was it's basically it's kind of this character type, that comes mostly from his. It's this epic poem he wrote. So it's basically a book length. It's a poem that's as long as a book. It's a book length poem called "Chilled Harold's Pilgrimage." This basically the character in that, he's kind of self-destructive. He's kind of dark. He's got this. He kind of embodies the dark side of creativity and art, and well, Mishima in this, he does exactly that as well. And so I think, yeah, it all kind of connects in that sense, and I like that he does have a sort of, he does have kinship among other writers, and that he does have a place in the literary pantheon. Let's say all the books ever written, he has his own place in literature, and he connects to other places in literature, and that interests me a lot, very much so. And yeah, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just this book. Yeah, it's also just what I like about literature, that you can make a new material out of previous material. You can relate things to a lot of things, that it give you a lot of materials to cover or things to say about literature, that it makes it more coherent, or gives you more option, or a wide range of field that you can talk about, that you can use to interest your audience.
Right, yeah, and you can build upon, you can expand, you can modernize the works of previous writers. You can take what they did and use it to continue going, and that's kind of, there is that collaborative aspect of creativity. The creative process, kind of picking and choosing things from other writers, and either improving upon them, or doing them justice by continuing with them. Picking up where another writer has left off. Another artist has left off. That could be said for anything: sculpture, painting, music, all really any kind of art. But yeah, well, and then what did you think about Runaway Horses?
Uh, I didn't realize much about the runaway horses. I just realized things when you talk about it, that is your favorite one, and then you talk about this aspect about the really about the being a political person. It's just what's really drive a person to be political, because yeah, it's just we as human being, we have a lot of needs, and that is one of our needs, to have something to believe in. Yeah, it's something that drives us to a reason to live. We're always looking for a reason to live, and that's is one of the most people thinks one of the most important aspect, that being a political person. It's just in the runaway horses, he take things, it's a serious matter. It's not just what's happening now, that is, it seems that the politics, it seems like just a trend or a competition. That's we always say that it look like that now, that politics look like a team sports. But in that one, even though you're not a political person, it could be the reason for you to get into politics, or maybe not exactly get into politics, but get into an interest about politics, or what is it all about, or that the politics is not only about what is happening now, but it's also the principles that we are living in, or for some people, that it's also a reason for it's some people that it's the only reason that they hold into, or the best thing that they drives us to live as a human being. Yeah, it's I admire his dedication about politics. It's just it's not just a normal thing that what is happening now. It's just it offers you a lot of things. I just realized things. I'm not really a political person, but yeah, it's maybe it could be a reason for me to get into politics, or not exactly get into politics, but to be interested of what is it all about.
Right, yeah, but at the same time, even though again the subject matter is overtly political, I would say that it's more about the underlying kind of the forces, that whatever it is that drives us to things like politics, not only politics though. I would say it covers more. It's less about politics really, and more about again committing oneself to a cause, and that doesn't have to necessarily be a political cause. It could be art. Again, it could be beauty. Just like how he also committed himself to beauty as well as politics, and really, Mishima, he's using politics as a vehicle through which to kind of apply the knowledge that he's gained from art and from the appreciation of beauty over the course of a lifetime. He wants to apply that same sort of thing. He wants to make words useful and merge words with action, kind of marry words to action, and that's the thing. He's trying to find a kind of a practical use for it, practical real world application for the things that he's learned through being an artist and through being a writer and through being a thinker and an appreciator of beauty and aesthetic, an aesthete. But yeah, I think it's less about politics and more about just, again, the thing that drives us to commit ourselves to things, the thing that commits us to, the thing that gets us to believe in things that are greater than us. I think that's more what it's about. What do you think? Would you agree or disagree?
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you that it wasn't only about politics. It's just I just focus more on the politics side because yeah, I didn't talk much about politics. It's just my first time to talk much about politics, so maybe um it's not only maybe it's I guess why you like this one is just it summarizes it's also embodied the other aspect of the two, the Golden Pavilion and then the House of Kyoko is also the part of it. This also included in this one. It's just this one summarizes what Mishima's life is all about. Not exactly everything, but most of the things that happened in his life is in we can see all those aspects in this one.
So you think this one builds upon the previous two books that are covered in this movie?
Uh, yeah, I think so. Yeah, because it's included about the other two are focused more on their two topics. For example, the beauty and envy, and for example, and then the runaway horses. It balances these two aspects, and also the reason why do people really look for beauty or look for something to find meaning into, or to a reason for them to live, or a meaning, or what really the driving force why we're living, or what are the things that we are fighting for, or the belief system that we believe in as an individual. What is it drives us to do, what it made us think, or yeah, what made us as an individual, or do our own fights.
Right, and it's not that you were necessarily wrong about connecting it to politics, because it is ostensibly about politics, and the work does help us better understand like why we do care about politics, why we give a shit about things like that, why we are interested in social causes, and why we do try to why we do concern ourselves after a certain point in our lives. Once we reach a certain age, why is it that we concern ourselves with I guess the greater good, the world around us? Why do we care? I think Runaway Horses helps us to kind of better understand that a little more. It refines our understanding of it. The answer exactly, though, if I had to put it into words, to be honest, it kind of eludes me. But we do see not necessarily the consequences, but the effects that this desire to see, good in the world or change in the world, or to it will more so really. Really kind of the selfishness of selflessness, or the selflessness of selfishness. Either way you want to use that, because it's really, at the end of the day, it all kind of connects to Mishima himself. It all kind of comes back to him. It's not so much as at least depicted as it's depicted in this film. You could almost argue that Mishima's, he seems to be maybe some sort of narcissist or something at times, because he does kind of tend to, or at least an egocentric, in the sense that he does kind of have to bring everything back to himself. He kind of is the center of his own universe. It's never really so much about actually committing yourself to something. It's more about the effects of committing yourself to something. What happens when you, like, the consequences of committing yourself to something, or again, what it does to you when you commit to something. It's not about the thing itself that you're committing to. It seems to me, almost. It seems that, or at least the director is portraying it as such. That Mishima is, he cares. I mean, you can tell that he obviously does care, but why does he care? You know what I mean? I wouldn't argue that he doesn't care about. I wouldn't argue as to whether or not he cares about Japan and that sort of national purity or whatever, and kind of keeping the culture and sticking with their traditions of old and stuff. I mean, he obviously did give a shit, but it's just I wonder what he gave a shit more about. What it was he gave more of it. I guess gave more of a shit about rather. Was it the cause itself, or was it the effect that committing himself to the cause would have? Was it really just that ritual suicide, killing himself for something? Was it the cause, or was it the act of killing? What do you think? Which one did he care about more? Because for me, I think he cared more about the killing, honestly, or at least that's how the movie portrays it. But I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I guess it. He more cares about the killing throughout the movie. I guess that he never he get into he becomes political in the end, but most parts of the movie it's just it just seems it's from his childhood he's thinking of committing suicide or the killings itself that it's always in the part when he's into introspection. He thinks of uh, he's looking for a good way to die. A good there's been a reason for him to die. Um, his he comes into the thinking of suicide, taking suicide or doing suicide, but he's still looking for a reason for him, a greater reason for him to commit it, and then that's the I guess he find the best reason to commit suicide in the end, and uh, he's also serious. I guess that he's also serious, but he's fighting for about awakening the nationalism of the Japanese people, but also it's I guess it's more on in the side of him killing himself.
Right. Yeah. Because it is for him. It is this culmination of it's beauty. It's kind of, it's almost, I don't want to sound too crass when I say this, but it's almost like this sort of artistic or like creative orgasm for him. It's this this great big release that he finally gets to have at the end of his life. And that, well, and then that, and also it seems like he kind of doesn't like to be alive very much anyway. It kind of seems like he just kind of suffers through his life. He doesn't really belong to this world. He's a lot like J.M. Coetzee in the Scenes from Provincial Life trilogy that he wrote. That series of fictionalized memoirs he did, Youth, Boyhood, and Summertime, and all of that. By the way, he was that writer J.M. Coetzee, the South African who won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 2001. He was heavily influenced by Patrick White, who is an Australian writer who is famous for his novel The Vivisector, which is a kind of, again, all these writers and these novelists, all these writers in these novels, they explore, again, that dark side of art, the kind of the demonic aspect almost. And for me, the Coetzee, his character in his books, because those are in those memoirs, he basically writes like this made up version of himself, this exaggerated version of himself, who is kind of just, again, driven by this sort of indefinable, incomprehensible evil. And I think all this stuff, all of these things, they're trying to they force us to confront evil, the question of evil, the problem of evil, let's say, and why what evil is, where it comes from, what is its nature, why does it have this grip on us, why are we so why do we fall victim to it so easily? Why are we so tempted by it? All these questions, all these works and all these writers, they try to answer that question, these questions, and it's difficult. The question of evil, it's not really one that anyone can answer. If it could be answered easily, it would have been by now, and there wouldn't be such a thing as all these conflicting religious sects and political parties and everything. There would be no question of it if there was just this end all be all solution. We would have figured it out by now, I'm sure, and we would have put a rest to all of this civil dispute and stuff. I hope that maybe in the future we do find some sort of great big answer that leads to utopia, but for the time being anyway, as of February 1st, 2021, that answer has not that answer has not revealed itself to us just yet as a species. So, I just think Mishima, I think really what it comes down to is that he cares. He's kind of, again, he's at the mercy of this sort of darkness, and to me he sort of, it's like he's kind of just risen out of the earth. You know what I mean? It's kind of like he appeared out of nowhere. You know, kind of like Heathcliff from Wuthering Heights by one of the Bronte sisters. I forget which. I apologize. But for my shortcoming on that. But yeah, Wuthering Heights, classic of English literature, classic of Gothic literature. Heathcliff in that novel is, they say that he might be a demon because he just kind of shows up out of nowhere. He's an orphan. He's a foundling. He has no past. He just kind of appears one day. That's kind of how I see Mishima almost. It could be the same. He's just this thing that has an entirely different nature from other human beings, or from human beings. I'm not even sure if he is human, honestly. He's kind of superhuman in a way. In a way, I think what it comes down to is that he's a genius. He may not necessarily be a demon, but he's a giant among men for sure. People like him are a cut above the rest of us. They don't see things the way we do. Just like Osamu Dazai, who wrote No Longer Human, or Ernest Hemingway, or David Foster Wallace. Mishima appears to have been some sort of prodigy, excelling at pretty much everything he did, a real jack of all trades, with charisma to boot. And a great sense of humor, great public presence, self-assured convictions, self-assured in his convictions, rather. He might have been mentally ill by our understanding of mental illness, actually. But to be honest, I don't think that says much. I think there are still plenty of things about ourselves and the human mind and what the mind is capable of doing that we still have no solid understanding of as of yet. I think our understanding of things is still very flawed, very much flawed. And I just, I think the problem with our society and with who we are as just people is that we don't understand our geniuses. We don't understand the geniuses in our societies, in our various societies, in our world. And so we ostracize them. We try to devalue them and try to devalue and exclude them. Write them off as nut jobs and close the drawer on them, so to speak. But you know what? I think there was more to Mishima than that. More than just mental illness. And I would like to read the Sea of Fertility tetralogy someday to get closer to finding out exactly what that was. Now, I believe Wuthering Heights was written by Charlotte Bronte. Oh, Emily Bronte. I apologize, Emily Bronte, who and I know that this is a bit of a tangent, but that was the only novel she ever wrote. So, damn good one, But yeah. Heathcliff, by the way, let me just pull up the Wikipedia article right here. It says here that in keeping with the supernatural themes present in the novel, this is Wuthering Heights now we're talking about, it is speculated that Heathcliff might be a demon or a hellish soul. And Heathcliff, by the way, is one of the kind of the premier prominent examples of a Byronic hero. Heathcliff's appearance would be faithfully interpreted as resembling a Roma or gypsy, as he is described with dark hair, dark eyes, and dark skin. And there's all sorts of superstitions, especially in Europe, surrounding gypsies, the traveling people or whatever, Nellie Dean states that he could be well, let me see. Sorry. Here we go. Sorry. In Chapter 4, Heathcliff is described by Mr. Earnshaw to be as dark almost as if it came from the devil, And that's the thing. He kind of just rises from he just kind of comes out of nowhere. And then he wreaks havoc on this family's life, and that's kind of the whole book. But, yeah, man, I don't know. It's something. But, yeah. Do you have anything you want to say, Simone?
Yeah, it's a fact that most writers, or the famous writers that you introduced before, they're one of the kind. I guess that they have a different way of thinking.
Right, they're in a class of their own is the thing. Yeah, they're in a class of their own. That's what I was going to say earlier. Sorry, go ahead. Didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, they're one of a kind. I guess that they have a different they are different. They have some qualities. They have a certain quality that make them above from the rest of the human beings, or something that make them exceptional in their class, or make them really 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 the number one in their what they're in their forte. For example, their writing, they're the focus of this of their story. They have they're not only good as a writer but also as an individual, because they can write such good literature or books or stories without them being their own character, or the reasons why, or didn't expect, even though they didn't experience much things about the what they're written in the book. But still there are some uh, different way of thinking that make them exceptional, above make them above, different from all of us as human being, to portray such good a story, or get into deeper introspection into things that most human beings can think didn't think of that way. They have a different aspect, or the different way of thinking that that they can only do. I guess we can also do those things, or to get into deep introspection, but they did it a different way. They approach things in a different way, their own unique way, that they can only do that. They are the only one that can address such thing
Right, because
that
they have
will
such
made
a they have a
us
sorry, go ahead.
realize.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. They have their own way to portray things that they can only do, to make us realize to certain things that they focus on, or they wanted to talk about.
Right, exactly. Because I think what makes them special, again, what makes them so exceptional, is that they have this special relationship with the things that they write about. So beauty and maybe sex and love and just and life. Really, they have such this. They have a really deep, refined understanding of the world and what's in it, and the forces that kind of drive everything. And that seems to be what separates people like Mishima from the rest of us, I suppose. It's just this really deep, intimate understanding, and also dependence as well. This dependence on understanding and knowledge, and you see that in again the Temple of the Golden Pavilion, for example. The stuttering, both the cripples, both the stutterer and the flat-footed one. It's like he said, you need knowledge. I have the quote right here. Actually, it was one of my favorite quotes from the film. That's why I wrote it down. The crippled one. Well, they're both crippled. Sorry. The flat-footed one who teaches the stutterer how to kind of live in the world, how to make it. He tells him that only knowledge can turn life's unbearableness into a weapon. And that's perfect, and that seems to be what Mishima kind of is as an artist. He kind of, or at least that's how he was when he was younger. And all throughout, he depends on. It seems like he can't really live life without his art. He can't. He's dependent upon it, and that's what makes it so good. Is that it's real. He's authentic. He really gives a shit. And you wouldn't expect that. It's like when you think of a real artist, who do you think of? You tend to think of someone who is more so just committed to their craft in the sense that they work really hard at it. That maybe they sit at a desk for 10 hours a day until they figure it out. For years, until they finally get it perfect. They get the sentence down to the exact pitch perfect syllable or something. But that's not really how it works. You don't brute force it that way. Some artists do that. I would say Kotse is a good example of someone who does it like that. But the more natural writers like David Foster Wallace, for example. Well, I guess David Foster Wallace he kind of balances both, and so does Mishima too. They kind of take form and natural talent, and they make it perfect. Kind of like, again, with Mishima and his preoccupation with connecting words with action. Maybe connecting talent with form. But let's say a more natural writer like Henry Miller, for example. Henry Miller. The great American writer of sex, banned in the U.S. until the 1960s. He's a very spontaneous writer. Same with Karl Ove Knausgaard, the great modern Norwegian, I guess, semi-autobiographist, but biographer rather. But yeah, Both those writers, they're spontaneous and they don't really pay attention to form. They kind of just throw themselves in it. But you'll notice about all these artists, what they all have in common is again a dependence, a certain dependency on their art. And you wouldn't expect that, You wouldn't think that, in order to be a good artist, you need to kind of be weird or empty enough to need it in your life. But that's just the way it is. It's like these people, it's not always fun for them. It's necessary. It's a necessity for them. They need this art. They couldn't be anything without their art. You die, and that's what he does. He kills himself because just living life on its own is not enough. You need this. You need to have this special relationship with beauty. You need it. And that's the thing. He needs it desperately because without it, he's nothing. His life is worthless, or at least that's how he feels about it. And yeah, there's something to be said about that. There really is, and maybe they do just belong to a different breed altogether. Maybe there is no making sense of them unless you are, again, one of them. But I won't sit here and pretend that I understand them fully. But I am somewhat in awe of Mishima, and I usually don't say shit like that. I usually think that kind of thing is too corny, too corny a statement to make about something. But this really did, this movie and his life and everything and like his work, like I'm interested now. I really am, and I didn't think I would be. I looked at him like when I first heard about him, I thought he was just, again, too political and just kind of overrated, But man, I got a lot of respect for him now, and I didn't think I ever would. And that's the beauty. That's the great thing about literature and art in general. It's just it opens avenues for you that you never would. You probably never go down otherwise. So I don't know. I feel like my eyes are open to something else now. I like this. I like. I feel productive after having come out of this. I feel like my worldview has been expanded. And in a way that I never would have thought to consider at all. I just there's something really good about that. Yeah, I don't know. Is there anything you'd like to add to that, Simone? We've only got a few more questions. We can end this episode soon. I know that we've been going on a little longer than we usually do. But is there anything you'd like to add before we move on?
Yeah, what I'm going to add. Yeah, I guess that. Again, I will say that it's not actually my first time to get into this movie because the other the other materials that we already reviewed before are also related to this one. But this one, yeah, it just I just realized that this one we get into we get into much deeper conversation than the others that we did in the earlier episodes or the previous episodes. This one is really, yeah, it's really worth talking about. That yes, as you said, that it's the first time that you heard about Mishima. It's just he didn't interest you. I guess. Yeah, it's just and me, I guess I haven't much exposed to literature or the life of the authors that you introduced me before or that we already did on this channel. Yeah, I just it's just the movie itself is just it's really great that all the aspects of Mishima's life or everything and um, Mishima as an individual and all his works it's just interrelated. It's just it's all coherent to each other. That all the ideas that you can get into it are that it will make you that you really need to articulate or really think about it. It's just it's just underlying questions that made you ask more about yourselves or and made you realize things.
Right, yeah, because it's a very comprehensive portrait of the man and the artist, and yeah, it's great, and it's really unique. It's part literary adaptation, part biography, biopic, whatever. Uh, but and then of course it's also part just I guess art, piece of it's its own kind of independent work, separate work from anything that Mishima did or any because it's the director's vision as well, and just phenomenal. I've never really I wish more literary adaptations did kind of experimental, unconventional things like this. It's very complex, you know. It's very complex. It's a hybrid, and at the same time, it works on so many different levels too. It is exceptional in every single thing that it is. It's a great literary adaptation. It's a great biopic, and it's a great vision, I guess, directorial vision, cinematic vision. It works on every single level, and it's this perfect combination of things, and I love it. You know, it has all the right working parts, working moving parts. It's great. But so let's do these last few questions and then sign off. So do you think Yukio Mishima was mentally ill, Simone?
Uh, I don't think that he's mentally ill. He's just I guess, but just to say, you compare him to different writers that you know. It's just maybe he come from a different class, or he's just a different. He's just the way he is, or really he's a different human being. He thinks in a different way. He's different. He's in his own way. He has his own quality that separate us from that make him upper or um, different or higher than any human being. The way he thinks, it just I can see just like you said earlier that there's not much we can see much trauma or a certain scenario where that really affected him as an individual to act that certain way, to be depressive or to look at suicide or to get into introspection. It's just the way he is. It's just what he's really unique. It's just like what you say that you compare him to. It's just one of those intellectuals that really excels, or he's just one of those gifted individual that uh, can really the only person that can only explains us things that we didn't understand or we can come up with on our own. Yeah, he's just different.
Right. Yeah. And I would say, you know, like I said, I would consider him to be a genius of sorts. But more specifically, I would say he is kind of like maybe a bit of a madman, maybe a bit mad, you know. But again, like I said, our understanding of this kind of stuff, it's faulty, you know, it's flawed. Like, you know, 100 years ago, we didn't know shit about mental illness or whatever, you know, mental health or whatever. We didn't know shit. So it's like, what can we really say is the thing. What can we really say about it? Um, I think he was, because I wouldn't want to presume anything. You know, I think it's more so that again, to connect it to that kind of demonic thing I was talking about earlier, the demonic beauty of just this film and the soundtrack and his work and Mishima the man himself. I would say that he's demented a little bit, just demented by art, tormented. You know, and I know that that's a bit of a grandiloquent word to use, but it's true. It's perfectly applicable to this guy. And what keeps it from being, you know, maybe a little cringy or disingenuous or whatever is the fact that he's seriously like that. You know, like you said, he is not. He's just it's just the way he is. It's just his nature. He's just a little different, you know, and that's it's really it is to me it's great. You know, I love that we can experience that without having to be that way. You know, I love that you know, through movies and through art, through books and everything, we have a window. We have a window into just the minds of these people, or maybe not necessarily the minds, but just as close as you're going to get. You know, you get this communication, this very intimate communication between viewer and well, between artist and viewer, artist and audience, whatever. Um, Great stuff. I don't know. There really isn't even anything to say. Honestly, it kind of just says itself, and that's the great thing about it. How about this though? Do you think beauty? Okay, so now let's get into a little more philosophical, abstract territory with this one. Do you think beauty is worth sacrificing one's life for? You know, so do you think it is justifiable that someone dies for beauty?
Um, for me, beauty is
That someone die for beauty?
uh, I guess yes. If we're taking things philosophically, just like you said, if we're aware of the real beauty, it's not just a shallow definition of beauty, a deeper introspection about beauty, and just like you say, it's a philosophical view on beauty. Beauty is not only about the physical or widely accepted legitimacy of things. It's different depending on the culture and our views about it. It is worth fighting, sacrificing for if it means a lot to you or that it becomes the representation of oneself. It really depends on the culture that you're living. I mean that if you're really living beauty or looking at beauty, it's just it's a totality of your person. It's just or something that it really made you as an individual, or it's just when you view it that it's the only reason for you to live. For example, um, in the past century, for example, in the ancient history, just like how the Roman gods or Greek goddesses views beauty as the highest, one of the highest things, or that can people can worship to, or yeah, it's just it's worth sacrificing for. If you just like what you say in the in the one of the books, what is titled about the horse?
Oh, Runaway Horses.
Runaway horses. It's just a we can relate this to that yeah, the search for man belief system, the search for human being to have something to believe in or some just exactly a search for something to believe in. If people really see beauty, or we can say that for example in the previous previous centuries or the ancient times, that beauty is the people see beauty is the only way for them to live or the reason for them to live. So maybe it's a yeah, we can say that it's a worth sacrificing for it if it's the only reason for someone or some people to live. Or for example, it's for example Mishima, he view things differently. Um, for him, it's worth really dying for because he view things not only in the shallow part. It's just he has his own interpretation of beauty. It's just the whole embodiment of him, or a reason, a great really reason, the underlying reason why he's living.
Right. And then on that same token, do you think politics is worth sacrificing one's life for?
Yeah. If we were look at politics as that's a philosophical thing, that's just what's it's happening today. That it becomes a trend. It's more likely a trend, but it's great that the runaway horses gives me a background, even though it's not exactly about politics. It's just one aspect of the book, but yeah, that is. I guess that if people look at this thing, or one individual look at this thing as the sole reason for them to live, or this is the only belief system that they're believing, the believing if the reason for them to continue to be or not to be, or this is the reason for them to be, uh, to live, to continue living, or this is they hold a really great significance in their life. So I guess it's really one that they're worth fighting for. I guess it's yeah, it could be a reason for them to. It's okay for them to sacrifice in this one. It's just if they look things deeply, it is a great tie between them, politics and them.
Right. Yeah. And then, and then to connect that to Mishima personally, do you think that Mishima's attempt at a coup was serious, or did he merely use it as a pretext to go through with committing ritual suicide, which he does again in the very last scenes? Was it a pretext, or was it serious?
We can say that it's serious because he's we can say that he's based on the film, based on the movie that the sole reason for his suicide for doing that is suicide. But we cannot remove the fact that he did the coup seriously because he really he not just talk or just talk, but he also did something seriously. He take things seriously, not just a joke for him, or just if he will just use this as a reason for him to suicide, that he will not he will not waste his time to just talk to the people seriously. We can see I see some photos of him of the actual speech that he did. I can see that he's serious on what he's doing and what he wants to convey to the people, or why he's fighting for. It's just in the way the movie portrayed. It's just he's serious about their for doing the coup, but he's also he's serious in both things, but he's most seriously on the reason for him to commit suicide.
So you think that if he did manage to like convince the soldiers that he was speaking to join him in kind of overthrowing the whatever, kind of taking back the attacking the government or whatever, taking back the rescinding the 1947 Constitution and just returning Japan to a better a more traditional state or whatever. Do you think he actually would have led that movement if it really did come true? Do you think he really expected them to listen to him? And do you think he would have followed through with that and been like the leader of that movement had it actually been successful? Or do you think he was going to kill himself no matter what anyway?
Yeah. Based on my understanding, it seems that he there's it seems that the people will not really listen to him. It just he also wants to commit suicide to play to shake the people or some to make something or to make an impact, not just by him that not just his act of trying to overthrow the constitution, but also he wants to leave an impact, not just what he's fighting for, but to remind the people that he's serious what he's been fighting for. That it's not just a joke. It's just his impulses or something. It's he's serious on what he's doing. That his dignity or his will as a person, his life is dedicated for the change that he wanted to to happen.
Right. So you think he wanted to send a message then?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It seems that the people really don't want it, that will not listen to him. That it's for him at that he thinks that it's the only way for him to leave a message to the people that think about the constitution or think of what he's that his voice should matter, or it's not just a nonchalant thing, or it's just a nonsense rant what he's fighting for. That think about what I'm fighting for, that because I'm serious with the with I'm fighting for.
Right. Yeah. And maybe the message was too effective because I mean now that they don't even want to talk about it. It was so controversial or whatever these days. But yeah. So again, well, where was I? Oh, so now to provide my answers for those questions. Do I think beauty is worth sacrificing one's life for? I would say, you know what? No. Both. Well, because my philosophy is practical, so I would just say both philosophically and pragmatically. I would say no, because you know what? If you die, guess what? You won't be able to experience beauty anymore. So I would say live as long as you possibly can in order to experience as much of beauty as possible. That's what I say, anyway. But now, should you sacrifice your life for politics? I would also say definitely not. No, because well, unless you're living under, let's say, like a dictatorship or a fascist system, and you need to die, and you want to die in order, you want to die in the name of freedom or something like that. That would make sense, of course, in that case. But still, even then, I think it should always be killing yourself should always be a last case scenario. A worst case scenario. Sorry. A last ditch effort, let's say, because the second you die, you lose all usefulness with regard to whatever cause it is you may be trying to push. It would be better to be smart about it, let's say, and instead of just acting as cannon fodder and extinguishing yourself right off the bat, it's like why not carefully plan things out. Unless that's the only way. Again, though, if it really is the only option, then sure, go for it. Like in Alien 3, where they have to die because that's the only thing they can do. But that I would say that if you can, don't do it. If you can avoid doing it, avoid doing it. That's what I would say with regard to both of those. With regard to both beauty and politics. Because I don't know, it's like, the longer you can enjoy it, the better, right? But yeah, maybe Mishima, maybe he would have lived to 80 and realized, hey, it's not growing up, getting old isn't as bad as I thought it was when I was younger. Maybe his perspective could have changed, but he never had the chance to have that perspective change because he just extinguished himself right off the bat. Who knows what kind of writings he would have, what kind of work he would have produced had he. I mean, he did a lot already, but imagine how much more he could have done if he'd lived a fuller life, let's say. But now, did I ask this one? Oh, so was his attempt at a coup serious, or was it a pretext? I personally, so this is just me, but I think it was personally a pretext because he did spend his entire life up to that point desperately kind of searching for something to give himself away to, and in the end, it turned out that his attempted coup just so happened to be the thing that got him through. That's how I see it anyway, or that's how the movie portrays it at least. Well, now let me ask you this, Simone. Do you think that is there anything you would sacrifice yourself for the way that Mishima sacrifices himself for what he believes in?
To be honest, I don't have much or to take things as seriously as he did. But maybe the only reason that the only thing that I can see is that for my fellow Filipinos or countrymen to realize their freedom, to exercise their freedom, not exactly to agree on my political views or my views on things or condemn what I condemn. It's just for them to have their own opinion or says about things. It's just my country. I think each country or every human being needs to have their own opinion or says about things. It's not just they should agree on things that most people agree on. It's just the community or the society or the government would be much better if a lot of people have their own suggestions about things that we can see, because we are scattered around a different area. We grow into a different, we're exposed to a different environment, so we have a different insights about things. There are things that affects me as an individual, and we are affected differently. We experience things differently, we view things differently, so we have a lot of different perspective, and we can share those ideas to make a good change for our community. For example, of what's happening in my country, uh, it really needs not only one political party or something. It's just a different voices from the people, because it's not just one. It's just one set of one group of people. It's just a different people who has a different needs and a different perspective. So yeah, that's what going to fight for is just for people to have their own voice or own opinions or says about things.
Well, that's a good cause to I guess to sacrifice yourself for if you had to sacrifice yourself for something. But me personally, I would say no. Again, I wouldn't sacrifice myself for anything. And as much as I like Mishima and this film, I think that he was still way too extreme in executing his desires. Um, but again, I think he was a sort of giant among men. He had something in him that's hard to make sense of. I'm sure it was hard even for him to try and understand sometimes, most of the time. And as bizarrely, but then again, as bizarrely exaggerated as his desire to give his life away to something greater may have seemed at the start of the film, about halfway through watching, I realized just how universal it actually is. We all need something to believe in, is the thing. Case in point, now, for example, now that the world is moving away from religion, it's worshiping politics and government instead. So instead of various sects of religion, Catholicism, Christianity, for example, Catholicism, evangelicism, baptism, Baptists, Protestants, all those different sects, all those different ways of approaching the same problems. It's like with politics now, that's just been replaced with politics because of the secularization of the global climate, let's say, or society, or whatever culture. Now it's Democrats versus Republicans, or Labor versus liberal, or whatever. You know, we all have this need to give ourselves away to something greater than ourselves, than greater than us. And you know what it is? I'm still not entirely sure what it is that Mishima worshipped, what his big thing was. But it had something to do with the harmony of pen and sword, like he said. The harmony of words and action. He wanted to apply the knowledge he gained from art to something practical, something tangible. He wanted to consummate the union between the beauty of the abstract and the beauty of the concrete. I liked his monologue during the Runaway Horses segment, in which he expresses his desire to connect the two. It's probably my favorite scene in the movie overall. For me, Mishima seemed to have a preoccupation with purity, or the lack thereof. Runaway Horses is about his desire for a purer Japan, cultural, national purity, maintaining the dignity of one's cultural identity, keeping alive the traditions of the past, and paying homage to one's forebears. So that's what I would say, in short, is what he cared about. And then also something to do with beauty and the preservation of beauty, and beauty through youth, and purity, just purity in all forms, really. Aesthetic purity, political purity, cultural purity, individual purity, artistic purity, killing yourself to maintain your dignity like the samurai did, instead of getting captured and tainting yourself, kind of like how we saw Japan tainting itself by basically selling out, I guess, to Western civilization, to its enemies from the Second World War and all that, just to things that it wasn't, to modernization. So yeah, last big question, Simone. To end things off, this is probably the most important thing, and that's why I wanted to save the best for last here. Do you think Mishima's suicide was meaningful, or was it senseless? And why? Why do you think what you think?
The fact that we are able to think about, or dive into deeper in this, not only into this movie but also Mishima's life, I guess it's meaningful. It's just even I don't think that it's not generally that people don't talk about it in Japan. Maybe they talk about it, or privately, or it's just something that they talk about in public, because we know that Japanese people are value privacy, or they really look at things differently.
Right, they're very reserved. Yeah.
Yeah, they're very reserved. It's just we're not sure about it, that it's not really been talked about in Japan, or it's really been senseless in Japan. So we're not really sure about it, knowing that the Japanese people are also philosophical people. That maybe it's also had a great impact on the Japanese people, but it's not just it's not the issue. It's not just been public or something. But I guess that Mishima's death is meaningful to the fact that we're able to talk about his work, or talk about his life. It's just there are a lot of things that we can learn from him, or that he can only made us realize, I guess, that in this movie. I haven't here I am again, because it's just my first time to, it's not actually my first time, but it's just he's able to talk about these things differently. I guess he's the only person that can talk about or brought these things to me. I guess that, yeah, he's just his death is really meaningful, even though for him there's still possibilities for him to, if he had lived, that he can be able to write more literature and express more his essays or opinions about things. He's deeper into introspection, or his insights that a lot of people can learn too. But to the fact that, yeah, that this movie was made, as a tribute for Mishima. His death is not meaningless at all. It's meaningful. That yeah, these things that there are a lot of things that he can only brought to us. That he's only been able to talk about, not any other human beings. It's made him different.
So you think that so you feel that Mishima spoke to you more than maybe Shakespeare, one of the other artists that we've covered so far, writers.
Yeah, yeah. The fact that we're already running into a 2 hour long conversation is just yeah. He there is it's much more deeper. I guess that because it's his life. It's his life itself that all his works are related to his life, not just an exercise for him to. There's a relationship between there's a connection between him and his work that we can really see that really took place in his life.
So you think kind of just sort of this living vicariously through somebody else, or experiencing someone else's experiences secondhand, being able to kind of have a taste of that, a distillation of that person's kind of, the culmination of that person's kind of knowledge and insight based on their own life and their own experiences and everything. You think that's more effective than maybe something like, with Shakespeare, where it's more just kind of a broader kind of archetypal situation scenario that asks one of the big questions, like, what is I don't know, what is jealousy, or what is prejudice, or whatever. You think having a person's life, getting to know the person themselves, and kind of being able to indulge and engage in a work that really embodies that person and kind of the total sum of who they are, everything they were, are, and ever will be. You think that's more effective to you as you feel that that's more effective to you as a viewer, and as, I guess, as a consumer of art and well, writing and film and all that.
Yeah, Shakespeare is also effective, but Mishima is just given the context of what really happened in his life. It's just it made me realize that I need to appreciate him. I guess that he's really someone that you can appreciate, not only because he committed suicide, but also his insights are, or the message that he is trying to convey is really different. That I guess that he has his unique way to, or his make him really exceptional to other people. That he's different on his own way on how he convey these things, or he talk about these things. Shakespeare, he's also effective, but it's just given that it's all about Mishima is all about his own life. It's just yes, there's an urge for me to appreciate him, not only because he committed suicide. Also, a deeper meaning into this one. Shakespeare has also a deeper meaning, and even though it's not about his life, but he's able to get into those things. But yeah, it's just maybe one reason for me is just Mishima. It's happened. It's related to his own life.
Well, maybe it's also a time thing too. The fact that Mishima was only, all that happened a century ago, as opposed to several centuries ago with Shakespeare. Shakespeare might just be a little too old. Maybe that's part of it. Do you think?
Exactly that. Shakespeare for a far more century, and Mishima's life is more previous, or so we can really relate. We can say that it's much fresh, or I don't know if it's okay to use that term. It's just it's just the things that Shakespeare talk about is also, we can also relate to our lives that are happening now. But it's more of Shakespeare works appeals to the the hierarchy during those times, or the people that most of his works are created to appeal to the aristocrats, but thanks to the technology now that we're able to talk about it.
Well, yeah, and I think it's like what you were talking about, or what we were talking about earlier about how art kind of builds upon art, builds upon art, builds upon art. Shakespeare set a lot of the precedents and stuff. He is a fundamental writer in the sense that a lot of people have been influenced by him, but at the same time, just because courtesy of human progress and everything, and of time and of generations, generational differences, and just again progress, the world changing and everything. We've had other writers who have built upon the ideas that he laid the groundwork for. Even in this movie, they have some references to Romeo and Juliet in Kyoko's cottage. There's that girl who's playing Juliet, that actress that you see for a few seconds, a few moments. So Shakespeare does have that reach, that impact, but at the same time, you have writers like Mishima who again take that, learn from it. It's part of their education as an artist and as a person, as a thinker. But then they take it to the next level, and then they also connect it to their own life and their own world, which is just objectively more advanced than Shakespeare's was. So yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. It's just that they're both important, but the fact of the matter is that one has built off the other and is more effective because of it. I mean, you probably couldn't have a lot of the people we have now, a lot of the artists, the writers we have today, if it weren't for Shakespeare. That's just how fundamental he is. Same with Dostoevsky, same with Leo Tolstoy, same with Charles Dickens. There are just some writers like that. Same with the people who wrote, same with Homer, same with the person who wrote Beowulf, whoever that may have been. Or maybe not wrote, but told it. Well, yeah, it wrote because it was written eventually. But yeah, you know what I mean. There's these fundamental types. But yeah, there are different types of artists, and I would say that that's the distinction between the two. But yeah, for me personally, I would agree. Also, it is for me, it's still Mishima because he appeals to me on that emotional level, whereas Shakespeare is more. It's like going to the opera or something. It's nice. It's very you feel very you feel kind of, I don't know, elevated coming out. You feel like you've been, you've gone to heaven or something for a bit. But I don't know. There's a difference between whiskey and cigars and Hallmark movies and a cozy fireplace, I guess, or quality time with the family. They're just they appeal to different things, and I think for me, I care more about the emotional aspect than anything else. But I mean, I in a perfect scenario, I like all my artists or whatever to be balanced and everything. But yeah, I would say I place the emotional aspect over everything else. That's what brings me in. And I think that's what brings a lot of people in. Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I don't know much about literature, but yeah, that's the most thing that appeals to me is more on the emotional aspect. It's just what makes us human being. The emotional aspects, not only in the intellectual aspect. The intellectual aspect should come with emotional aspects as way to balancing and to have more impact to the audience, I guess.
Right, yeah, exactly. So now, oh yeah, got to answer this. So do I think Mishima's suicide was meaningful or senseless? I would say that it was meaningful. Because most artists, never mind most people, would never be willing to go through with what he did. But he did what he did, and it was his personal choice to do with his life what he pleased, uh, and he did so wholeheartedly, and he didn't really hurt anyone along the way. That's the thing. When he attacks the guy or whatever, the commandant, he just ties him up. He doesn't take his life or anything. He doesn't kill anybody. Um, the only thing that really happens, it's just a shame that one of the other crew members, Morita, ended up killing himself too. Even though, but again, even though Mishima kept telling him not to, he really emphasized that. He told the young his supporters. He said, don't kill yourselves. You have to be the future. You have to live your lives. This is something that I'm going to do. This is my personal choice. Don't follow in my footsteps. You don't have to. In fact, don't. I don't want you to. It was his thing. So even through all of that, he was still a good person. I would say he was a good person for that. You know, um, Yeah, and it is a shame that in real life that one of the other crew members did end up taking their life just to kind of be with him so that he wouldn't die alone. And actually, here's the Wikipedia excerpt that explains a little more about that. So it says here that Mishima committed seppuku, which is of course, again, a form of ritual suicide by disembowelment associated with the samurai. Morita, who was the crew member who killed himself, had been assigned to serve as Mishima's second kaisha kunin, which is cutting it again is his second, as in duels. You have the main person, the fighter, the primary whatever fighter, and then you have their second who will fill in for them. It's kind of the same thing here. Kaisha Kunin, cutting off Mishima's head with a sword at the end of the ritual to spare him unnecessary pain. However, Morita proved unable to complete his task, and after 3 failed attempts to sever Mishima's head, Koga, who was another one of the crew members, had to step in and complete the task. And then Morita killed himself because he didn't want. He said that he didn't want Mishima to be alone in death, which was a shame. And then he had one of the other members cut his own head off too. Pretty brutal stuff. But it actually happened, And it sucks. It's a tragedy, but at the end of the day, that's more Morita's fault than anybody else's. And that he's a young, stupid kid, and maybe Mishima shouldn't have messed with things like that, but messed with it. But I don't know. I think he did everything he could have in that situation, and I think the fact that he didn't want the kids to do that redeems him. If anything, that proves that he was a good person. I would say he was a good person. I don't know. What do you think, Simone? Before we close off.
Yeah, in the process of thinking about committing suicides or the negative things that he never, it's just it appeared it's only him, I guess. He never asks people to, he never thinks of hurting other people or involving other people with his plan, or to commit suicide or do something bad. Even though in the last part that he wanted change, as he's really so sure that he's willing to commit, he will commit suicide. He warns all his um, all his people, the 4 people that he get in, that he come with that he go with to the central to the military base. He warns them that I am the only one who will commit suicide. That you don't need to do do what I'm going to do. It's just only me. You have a life. Or for example, Morita, he told him that, hey, you have a girlfriend. There's life waiting ahead in front of you. So you should value your life. It is my own. It is a right, but it's just I am the only one who needs to die in this fight. It's just my own battle or something. That it's just only me. He didn't ask other people to, hey, go and die with me just to prove something. It's just it's my own fight. It's just me. You don't need to do what I'm going to do. But yeah, I appreciate your care about me. For example, just what he told about his people.
Right. Yeah, and that's the unique thing about him. He was such a militant, disciplined person, but you would expect someone like that, kind of a political icon or whatever figure like that to be the type of person who's like, no, if you're committed to this, you have to die too. But he didn't do that, and that's it's understated how important that is. Because he really could have very easily guilted them all into just dying with him. They were ready to do it. They were more than ready to do it. They wanted it. He could have breathed, and he could have breathed the word yes or go, and they would have done it. But he really didn't want them to. And I think that says a lot about his character, and that earned a lot of respect from me. I would say, not that my respect really matters. I mean, it's Mishima. One of I would say is probably one of the greatest writers of at least the 20th century, maybe of all time. Sure, one of the greatest political writers, to be sure, definitely, without a doubt. But yeah, and that ending, that ending with when everyone's the looks on everyone's faces as he's about to go, just the respect they have for him, the remorse they have at having him, die, but also the acknowledgement, the recognition that it's important for him. It means everything to him to do this. So much going on in that scene, and it really is. It's great. It's cinematic glory. It's artistic glory. But yeah, just some quotes that I wanted to end off with. Some quotes that I liked. Like we said, this was from. Here's the one I was talking about earlier from Temple of the Golden Pavilion. Only knowledge can turn life's unbearableness into a weapon. And then here's another one. Only art makes human beauty endure. And then here's the third one. Contemplate the danger of a man who thinks only for himself. And that was from Runaway Horses, and that was what the kendo teacher told the protagonist. And that was interesting because it raised this notion of selflessness through self-sacrifice, right? That Mishima believed in very much. Making one's life, one's existence more useful by essentially donating it to the greater good, as opposed to keeping it for yourself and just kind of indulging in beauty and stuff forever. Maybe that's what he was thinking. It's better to be useful than it is to just indulge yourself for the rest of your life, And then here's the fourth one. If purity is toned down, it is no longer purity. And then here's the fourth one, which I've kind of had to paraphrase because it wasn't structured kind of properly in the movie, because it was attached to other dialogue. So I isolated it here by kind of paraphrasing it a bit. Purity is possible if you turn your life into a line of poetry written with a splash of blood. I liked all those. I loved them. They're great. So yeah, we're not going to do any more would you rather questions. I don't know if that's disappointing or not, but I kind of thought that they were just a little pointless, and not as fun as I thought they'd be. But that's besides the point. We'll see you guys in the next one. We upload, or at least try to upload, new videos to this channel every week, so stay tuned. But yeah, Simone, are there any other thoughts you have? Is there anything else you'd like to say before we go? I'm going to give you this time now to say everything that's on your mind.
Yeah, I guess this one is the best episode that I. It's not because it's the longest. It's just I have the greatest thought, or that way I'm able to get into the material that we're talking about. That it's just it's not only about the life of Mishima, but it's also about art. That art isn't always something that make us comfortable. It's just I guess art is also something that make us think for ourselves. Made us realize the things that we need to articulate or contemplate about, to be too serious about, to talk about. And art is a really different need that human beings have, because there are different forms of art, but art isn't always has the same form. It's something that makes you realize things in always in a different approach. It's not always in the same approach. It's just art has a different approach to make you realize things. For example, that there are only certain medias that will make you come up with a certain idea. For example, and the life of Mishima, and him as an intellectual, or what makes him different from other people. That yeah, it's just different. It's just there are a lot of things that art has a different approaches to art, and there are a lot of different people that can only express certain aspect of life, of art. For example, Mishima and the other writers, that they are the one that that can only express something that other people can talk about. So yeah, that's what art really make interesting. That yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. Goodbye for now, everybody.